Good morning and welcome to the final Friday in November 2023. Welcome to Onward in Love and Caregiving. I'm Greg Johnson. I'm the president and CEO of GJP International, which is Greg Johnson Partnerships International. And I'm thrilled to welcome you as I am each week to each and every program that we do. These programs focus on family caregiving, and this one in particular deals with family caregiving, with faith, and with spirituality. I hope you all had a wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope that every day you include a bit of Thanksgiving in your day. Perhaps that gratitude list that we talked about last week can be of help to you. This morning, I want to begin by giving great thanks to a great lady, our former First Lady, Mrs. Rosalind Carter. All of us in the world of family caregiving owe her an enormous debt of gratitude. After leaving the White House, she began the Rosalind Carter Institute for Family Caregiving, located in Plains, Georgia. And I've had the privilege of being there and participating in several incredibly wonderful programs. I've also had the privilege of learning a great deal from the many publications and the enormous research that is done by this wonderfully important institute. But more than the institute, more than anything, it was Rosalind Carter in a world that didn't talk about these things that brought attention to mental health and to family caregiving. It was Mrs. Carter who first said, and it's a quote that we've used many times, in life there are really only four types of people. There are those of us who are family caregivers. Today, I'm one, and I know many of you are. There are those of us who have been caregivers. There are those of us who will be caregivers. And then there are persons, again, like myself, people who have been cared for. And in truth, we don't, I think, get out of this life without playing almost each and every one of those roles. Mrs. Carter realized that for too long, the family caregivers had been the silent patients. And with her enormous efforts and those of thousands of other people, family caregivers who have taken action to help other family caregivers, a great deal has been accomplished. In fact, it's incredible that the three huge pillars of this past year, beginning with the roadmap, then that wonderful study by AARP valuing the invaluable, and then the reception at the White House and the signing of 350 executive orders related to family caregiving. Thank you, Mrs. Carter and the Rosalind Carter Institute for Family Caregiving, for you inspired each and every one of us within government and those of us serving in the communities. We are deeply grateful. And we are deeply grateful to the Carters, I believe, for also being people who lived their faith and spirituality. Theirs was a difficult time, losing the second presidential race. That was very difficult. And yet with faith, with courage, President and Mrs. Carter moved on and had another entire chapter in their lives, worldwide, doing good. And for that, we shall be forever, ever grateful. However, I think there is one final gift that the Carters are giving and have given to us. And that is in their very courageous, in their very faith-based living. They taught us not only how to live, but using the gifts of the healthcare system They're explaining and teaching us how to die. Now, President Carter has been in hospice for a considerable amount of time. I believe it was February of 2023. The exact date doesn't matter. Mrs. Carter was in hospice for literally a day or two. That is often the thought of what hospice is about, but it's not. Hospice is not just the moments of death or the moments preceding it, but rather after treatments have been done, after technologies have been used, and in consultation with the patient. Someone who wishes quality of life far more than quantity. Someone who wishes to be present to the best of their ability and not in some sort of half state connected to a lot of tubes. That is where hospice comes in, because hospice is keeping a person comfortable without excessive medical interventions. The Carters have shown us this. Once again, leading the way, living into death. And why? Because there was no fear in either of them to death. They had a relationship with the divine, with God, as they would call him. They were living into eternity. Mrs. Carter is there, and the president remains in hospice, but walking each other home. And I don't think there is a more wonderful example of walking each other home than President and Mrs. Carter. And for that, I personally say, thank you. Thank you for that testament. And thank you for teaching us yet again that as long as we live, we can be sharing the caregiving by our example and by the things we choose in our lives. We're not imposing them on anyone else, but we are living them, and we are living examples, which is a lot different than simply textbook understanding. So I wanted to begin at that point. Now, yesterday we had the wonderful Thanksgiving, and I hope yours was as wonderful as was ours. That means the holidays are here. And with the holidays being here, there are a couple of thoughts I want to give to you. The holidays can be a very stressful time. It can be a very difficult time for those who are grieving. I had two emails yesterday, actually, from friends who are going through the firsts. As a clergy person, I frequently, in counseling and talking of grief, as I have with all of you, remind people that going through the firsts are the most difficult. But by that very number, you're only going to have to do it once. The first birthday, the first anniversary, the first Christmas, the first Thanksgiving. It's difficult. So admit it. Prepare for it. And do the things that are comfortable for you. You don't have to do whatever anybody else wants. But you will then not only go through the first, but you will grow through it. And you will grow in surrender and into gratitude. Because we need to remember, life ends, love never ends. And clinging to that, we're all together forever. So I urge you very strongly, During the holidays, please, if you are a family caregiver, get your list ready. Now, what do I mean by that? Often people will say, let me know what I can do. And you'll say, yes, yes, yes. No. When someone says, let me know how I can help you, have a list ready. You necessarily don't have to have it written down, but could you give me one morning during the week so that I can do whatever you need to do? Or I have some doctor appointments and you weren't able to schedule them with the person for whom you're caring. I need someone to be with my care recipient. Perhaps there's something from shopping that you need, something that you can't carry, something that you don't understand. Get that list together. And if you live in an apartment house, remember, I do, after my first husband died, after 41 years, the staff came to me knowing that I am totally non-gifted when it comes to mechanical things or things around the house, and said, don't worry, we're here. Just ask. Just ask. And that's very important. It's very difficult for caregivers often to say, could you help me with this? Or I need that. And one of the best ways to be prepared with that is when you know there's something, write it down literally. It facilitates it, it validates it. And it will also help you, if you're like me, to remember when someone says, let me know what I can do. Don't make another call later. Tell them right then and there, and hopefully get a commitment. And if you are not presently a caregiver, then be a caregiver to a caregiver. Make it part of your holiday to include a caregiver. Perhaps some little decoration that you could take to them. They're not going to have time to decorate their house. But yes, it's the holidays, whether it's Hanukkah, whether it's Christmas, whether it's Kwanzaa, whatever is appropriate. Share your holiday with them. There's nothing wrong with that. All the holidays are about love, light, and peace, and never does the world need that more than now. So caregivers, be leaders. You are. And those of you who are not in a current family caregiving situation, adopt a caregiver and be present for them. Maybe more than one. Give it a thought. One final thought for the holidays, and it's something I often talk about. Holidays are times when families get together, as many of you, I'm sure, did yesterday, with families of origin and families of choice, both very valid in our world of family caregiving. But once again, what often happens in families, and we know this, one person becomes that primary caregiver, and they tend to have the full responsibility. And it's important that someone is designated that way. But it doesn't mean they're the only ones working. And sometimes the primary caregiver can become absolutely overwhelmed and feel very much like the other members of the family are not contributing their fair share. Well, nothing was ever accomplished by screaming at somebody and saying, you aren't helping me. I'm going crazy with this, and all the other things that are not conducive to positive resolution. But I have a suggestion. Many of you are aware of this booklet, and I'm going to put the links right on Facebook with this. Care for the Family Caregiver, A Place to Start. It's a booklet that I wrote with Gail Gibson Hunt, the late founder of the National Alliance of Caregiving, many years ago for the 2005 White House Conference on Aging. It was published by Emblem Health, and that book that I showed you is the 4th edition, which is still very much available. I wrote it because the thing that I noticed from the very beginning is nobody goes to school to learn to be a family caregiver. Some people wake up and suddenly the person next to them has had a stroke or some other terribly difficult situation that is going to call for caregiving. Where do you begin? Well, no one has time to read a long book or do a lot of research, but this is a smaller, condensed version of what needs to be done and begins that journey. It gives people a place to understand the words, understand the basic language, and to hear some stories of caregiving so that they can begin to relate and hopefully begin to understand how valuable a support group is, whether it's online or in person, where you hear other people's journeys and they in turn can help you with your journey and they learn from what you're going through. So it can be a very positive experience. So I urge you very, very much. Here's what I suggest. I'm going to put the link there. And it is in English, it's in Spanish, and it's in Chinese. Whatever one is appropriate to you. If you are the primary caregiver, I suggest, and I have done this with many, many people with very positive results, that you email the appropriate link to the other members of your family of origin or family of choice, and simply say, I have found a great deal of hope and help within this booklet, and I'd like you to read it so that you too have an understanding of what this journey is all about. I certainly didn't know it involved all of these things. But in order that we can all work together for the sake of whomever that person is, I'd like you to read it. And then we can have a conversation. Yes, a conversation, not a screaming match. A coming together, finding what you can contribute. What are your talents? What are another person's talents? Sharing the caregiving. And when I say that, I cannot help but urge you, if you're looking for more detailed information, I'm going to be doing a program with her this coming week. The very brilliant Sheila Warnock, Share the Care. It's an excellent book. So now I hope that some of these thoughts, as we come to the end of National Family Caregiver Month 2023, and as we move forward, that these may help you. And I urge you to share this talk with friends, with family, with whomever you think it might be appropriate. All of these are here for you. They're put up on Facebook, and then they are transferred with my social media director in Jakarta. They are then transferred to the YouTube channel, which is Family Caregiving with the Rev, R-E-V. So please share, share, share. And as we always say, onward in love and caregiving. Namaste. God bless. And I look forward to seeing you real soon. Until then, blessings.